Usually at the marathon, I think for the last 3 or 4 years, I have given a talk, a pre-race inspirational pep talk and lecture, talking about why I am so inspired by running and what keeps me going at the age of 43 and 2 kids. And last year, after the talk, I thought, boy, I have these colleagues, these friends in town who are pretty much on the top of the game, and we're all either nearing 40 or in our 40s, and I'd like to get some other people up on the panel because I want to ask them some questions. And so today, what I've done is I've gathered our past winners, Suzanne Evans and Cheryl Murphy, and my friend Marilyn Arsenault, who broke my course record last year at the age of 41. And they all said yes, and so I've gathered them here so that we can have a bit of a discussion, which I'm going to lead. And I have to let you know, it's really neat for me. Like, between us, we have 6 children, all under the age of 10. We have 5 marathon wins here in Victoria. We have, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 half marathon wins here at this race, very specific to this course. And I figure we probably have a pain threshold of, I don't know what, whatever you measure pain threshold in, we must have a very collective high pain threshold. So I'm just going to introduce our runners just a little bit more for you, starting from youngest to oldest. We have Suzanne Evans over here, who's not even 40 yet, which is why I called the talk Running into 40. Suzanne Evans has been the winner here from 2005 to 2007, but she's always been active in sport. She didn't start competing really seriously until she was in her 20s, but she's always been active in sport, and a bit like myself, when I was reading her biography, her father was the one that really inspired her, really encouraged her, really supported her in sport. And it's really neat because Suzanne, as she says herself, got to spend 10 years raising her children and being a full-time runner as well, and balancing out child rearing with racing at a very high level. And the other thing about Suzanne, I don't know if everybody knows this because we know her as a marathoner here, but she likes the really long distances as well. Whereas I come from a 5K background, Suzanne has gone on and has raced races up to 100K, which is something I've never done. And next up here we have Cheryl Murphy. Cheryl and I have known each other for over 20 years. Cheryl and I started racing each other back in her Winnipeg, Manitoba days at university, and Cheryl and I have actually followed a very, very similar path. We both started running at a really high level in university, went on to become duathletes and triathletes. Cheryl has raced 5 Ironmans, top finishes 5th at Penticton in Canada, and we both have had 2 children along the way and balanced our careers with raising those children and trying to continue racing at a really high level. And next to me here is Marilyn Arsenault, also known as the running diva. For those of you who don't know, Marilyn is an opera singer. And when she sings, another person comes out. You've ever heard opera singers? And Marilyn is joining us today after really just coming out of A, training for her first marathon, being the fittest she's ever been, and B, landing herself in the hospital from a freak blood infection that just railroaded her first ever marathon, which was supposed to be run 3 weeks ago at the Scotiabank. And I really think she was in shape to run under 2:43 there. So Marilyn is joining us here today with her walker over there, her IV line, but an incredible running spirit to just get back up again and want to share with you some of her path in running. And as I said, Marilyn did break my record last year, and at the age of 40, I think, she went back to school and raced with the UVic bikes, and went on to come 6th at the Canadian University Championships that year and make the World Cross Country team. So a lot of spirit up here today. The first thing I wanted to talk about and ask the women, and I'm going to start with Suzanne, and I think I get asked this question a lot, and it's how how do you manage to train for a marathon and get 2 kids to school and work now, because you've actually started to work again, haven't you, Suzanne? Can you tell us a little bit about how you balance out your running? And it doesn't have to be perfect formula. We just want to hear how you do it.
Is this okay? I've learned to get up very early. I just got into running before I had kids, and so always it just became a question of time management, and it was just sort of whenever I could fit it in, and depending on the stage the kids were at, and you know, my routine has varied, you know, endlessly through the different stages, and really it's just been a question of priorities. It's become hugely important to me to run and to be fit and to run my best, and so I just make it a priority to fit it in each and every day. And you just do it. You just stumble through, and as I say, as soon as I sort of figure out one formula, well, we're at a different stage and it all changes, but ultimately it's, you know, I've just decided that it's going to be a part of my life, and I do what I can to fit it in when I can.
So it sounds like there's really no one tip or no one trick, because life changes almost every year.
Pretty much.
And how about you, Cheryl? Because you are faced with the same reality of getting 2 kids to school, and you have really, you know, you've trained a lot, especially when you train for Ironman, because you're probably putting in 30 hours a week of this and that.
Well, for sure, the operative phrase would be time management, and I think that for anyone of us up here, and I'm sure a lot of you in the crowd, it becomes a priority in your life, and when something's an important priority, you just make time for it. I think that's what you do, and for me, I mean, I started competing when I was in my late teens, way before I had kids, and you know, it just was such a part of my life that I didn't ever want to let go. I had my kids, and of course, I'm sure Lucy and Suzanne can also attest to that. You have your kids and you don't really ever have any goals right after you have your kids as far as getting back into shape, and it's just because it was so ingrained to me and such a part of my life, it just slowly kind of creeped back in. I think you know, I started running a couple days a week after I had, you know, kids, and then you know, it turned into 3 or 4, and then start, like for myself, doing triathlons, biking and swimming became part of the routine again. But I think for sure when you have kids, it's also a stress management tool as well. And yeah, I've always made it a priority in my life to have some kind of activity, and I'm just so grateful and happy that I can compete at a high level as well. So.
Thanks, Cheryl. Now, Marilyn, you also work full-time when you're not recuperating. You work full-time at the University of Victoria, and you also are trying to finish your master's in singing. So how does the priority of running fit into your life?
Well, I try to just balance everything off like these girls do, but I mean, I think having kids is a lot more difficult than what I have to balance. So yeah, I just kind of created a schedule where I sing in the morning, try to get my run out of the way, and then sing, and then get to work, and then run again at night, and just schedule it in and block it in. Don't have much of a social life. That's basically the sacrifice you have, and trying to get the rest. I think getting the rest in, I think for you guys too, is the hardest part. I found marathon training, that was the hardest thing to do. I got a full-time job, finished my run in the morning, whatever it was, a 2.5 hour run, and ideally going home and doing an ice bath and resting and eating and just lying down for an hour or two would be what I should be doing. But instead I found myself, as you remember, getting in my car, driving straight to work, and then sitting at a desk, which is not ideal for recovery. That was the only part that I found was imbalance with the marathon training. It was okay when I was running 10K half marathon, but I found trying to fit the rest in was the hardest part. And you just have to sort of just try to catch up on the weekends. That's what I would do. I just basically lie out on my couch and basically what I'm doing now. All the time.
For sure, training for a marathon. Suzanne, Cheryl, and I are all going to actually be running the marathon tomorrow. and we're all pretty much sort of equal seed times going in tomorrow. So, and this is the other really cool thing about sport for me is that you have these rivalries, which are really just friendships and an extension of your whole community that you have as an athlete. And so it's going to be pretty fun tomorrow morning. It's, you know, because we're not all like 30 anymore, and we're all out there still towing the line as elite athletes.
Thank you.